Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here for this live show. Today we are going to present some storage solutions, some modular storage solutions. We will use these 45-50 minutes to show you different products and different applications of our VLMs. Here with me, Matteo. He will help me with the operation on the machines, even if you will see that it's very, very easy to use them. So first of all, where we are. Here it's our production, so the modular production in Salvaterra. It's our headquarters. And the first unit that we will see, this vertical lift module that is behind me, is in real usage for the production. So this is the first thing which is important to say. So the vertical lift modules can be used in warehouses, but they are very well used also in production facilities, very close to the production. And this is one of the examples of this kind of application. So let's start and let's enter a little bit more in the product description. So first of all, what is a vertical lift module? The vertical lift module is a storage system, an automated storage system. It is basically composed of two storage columns, one in the front and one in the back, with a central elevator that can move all the trays up and down and store the trays in the cells, so in the specific places in the storage columns, and bring the trays in front of the operator. So the operators will stay exactly in front of the unit, where I'm currently here, you can see it. They will call the tray, and the material will come exactly at ergonomic position in order for them to retrieve the material. So now let's start and see it in operation. So Matteo, can we start calling a couple of trays? So there are several different methods to have the tray in front of the operator. What we are doing here is done manually, so we are simply calling the trays. Obviously, it's possible to connect the vertical lift modules to external software. So we have a WMS, for example. We have our own software, WMS. And in that way, it's possible to launch orders directly from the software and to connect the software even to external systems like the ERP. So in this case, what we can see is that we have just called a tray. The tray is exactly in front of me at a very ergonomic height. And in this case, what we can see is that the tray is already equipped with partition and dividers. So you see that here we have different compartments with different material. So here it's basically electronic material in most of the cases, and some mechanic, some tools, which are used in our electrical department, used to assemble products that need to be installed on our machines. One of the nice features of this product, and here we enter a little bit more in details regarding the different options and solutions that we have. What you see here is the so-called external bay. External bay means that the tray comes out of the footprint of the unit. We have also other solutions, like the one that we can have a look over there, which is an internal bay. So internal bay means that the tray stays inside the footprint of the unit. So the decision which kind of bay you're going to use depends mainly on the ergonomic, on the type of material, on the space that you have, so several different usage. Another important feature of our unit is the possibility to have the so-called dual delivery level. So we have the first delivery level, and we have a second delivery level, which is a little bit higher than the first one. And the nice feature is that the two trays can swap very quickly. So as soon as you have finished to pick one material, one SKU from the first tray, you can immediately call the other one and have it ready to start with the second picking. So Matteo, if we just swap the trays, you can see how it works. So you can see that the trays are swapped very quickly. And what we have here is a different kind of product, completely different. In this case are our manuals, the manuals that will be put inside our electrical cabinet. And in this case you see that there are no partition and dividers. I just want to show you the last tray, just to for you to understand the flexibility. So different material, different possibility, different weights. So Matteo, if we call the other tray, you've already done it, so it's coming. Perfect. And as soon as the tray arrives, we will swap it, and I will show you also the storage of boxes and how dense we can be for the usage and the storage of the material inside our trays. So in the meantime, here you can see that in this model, that by the way is our widest model, so the tray that you can see here is 4.1 meter wide. And you can see some accessories that I will show you a little bit later. So now the tray is here. And now we can swap it. So it's important to see that with this kind of boxes, for example, you can see how dense we are. So basically, in the footprint of the tray, there is literally no space left. So we have a perfect usage of the storage area that we have on a tray. Now, some of the accessories that you can see here, just to give you an idea of the availability and possibilities that we can have. So the one here is a laser pointer. So the laser pointer typically points exactly on top of the material that you have to pick. So it's a so-called picking aid. And the same is the graphic LED bar that you see here. So on the graphic LED bar, you can write the name of the product, the code, the number of SKUs that you have to pick. So all the information that you need that helps you, again, to avoid any kind of mistake that the picker could do. Other interesting features that we see here, close to the copilot. So here we have some authentication methods. So typically when you have to log in an operator on the copilot, you can do it with a password, typically. So you give them a specific password and they can log in. Or you can use devices like this one, which is an EKS reader. Or you can use a badge reader, like an RFID reader or a magnetic reader. It depends what you need. Another option that we have here is a barcode reader. Barcode reader that can be both used to authenticate the operator and also to do picking and confirm the picking. Last accessory that I want to show in this unit is the so-called ESD. So ESD is basically a device that you can use if you have to manage electronic material. So it's composed by a bracelet, and you have the grounding of the system in a way that when you have to manage electronic material, you are sure that you will not have any kind of damages. So according to the material that you have to store, also the so-called ESD can be an interesting feature. Last but not least, here below you see our electrical cabinet. I just want to show you that the electrical cabinet is typically integrated without our unit. We will see later on a different product, and with this different product you will see that the cabinet is separated by the unit. It's anyway possible in some specific cases also to have it remoted if it is necessary to do that. Some information which is more relevant to the flexibility and dimensions. So I mentioned that this tray is 4.1 meter wide, which is the widest that we have in our product range. But we start with much smaller trays. So we start with the 1.5 meter, and then we go to the 1.9, then we have the 2.5, the 3.1, and the 4.1. And this just to mention the width of the tray. Then coming to the depth of the tray, we have three different depths, 654 millimeter, which is exactly this one, the one that you see here, 857, 1257. So a very deep tray, which is used for very bulky material. Then in terms of payload, we have four different payloads, starting with 250 kg, 500 kilograms, 750, which is, by the way, exactly this tray. You can see the label here. So this one is 750 kg tray, and up to 990 kilo. So almost 1 ton for each tray. Then talking about the dimension of the unit. So what you see here is a 10-meter height unit, but we can start with a 3.3 meter, and we can go up to 16.1 and even more if it is necessary. So in terms of dimension, width, depth, payload, height, options, you see that there are really wide coverage of all the needs that are possible for the storage of material. Application. So I mentioned in the very beginning that the typical application for which the vertical lift module are known is for storage of material in the warehouses. But there are some applications which are becoming more and more popular. This one, for example, is just beside the assembly line of our electrical cabinets. In some cases, they are directly on the production line, integrated even with robot or integrated with AMR or integrated with other kind of automated solution for material handling. So there are wide possibilities also to integrate them in much more complex system. And that's the beauty of this kind of product. Not to mention that, as we can see, for example, on my right, you can see over there that we have 2 units, 2 VLMs. Obviously, we are in our production, so it's not a cinematographic set. But anyway, you can see them. So they are coupled, so you can put and you can install different units side by side, as many as you want. In that case, there are 2 units which are installed side by side. And again, the nice thing is that you can do it step by step. So you don't need to buy 5, 6, 4 units all at a time, but you can start with the scalability and modulability. So you start with 1 unit, and maybe when you need more storage, you simply add a further unit on top of the one that you already have. So flexibility, modularity, possibility to save a lot of valuable storage space, because obviously these remain probably one of the most important aspects. So to save space. Why? Because as you can see here, we can use the whole height, the whole ceiling clearance that we have to store material. So typically you can save in an application like this, where you have 10 meters of storage height, you can store probably 70–80% of the storage space. If you have even more ceiling clearance, and you can go up to 14, 15, or 16 meters, you can go up to 90% of saving of valuable storage space. Not to say that, as you can see here, the material is always enclosed inside the unit, so it always stays clean, so out of the dust. You have seen that there is an automatic door, so the unit and the material is really closed inside the unit. Accessibility is only granted for some operators that have to log in, so you can decide who can have access to your material and who cannot have access to it. So also for security reason, that's a very important feature. On top of that, when you are connected with the WMS, you have a complete traceability of the material. So all the material that is retrieved or it is put inside the unit is traced by our WMS software, and you always have your inventory under control. So all of these features, together with the flexibility and the wide range that I described before, makes it a product which is very useful for any kind of storage application and very flexible. So now we move to another product, which is the Modula Pallet. And while you move to the other product, which is just 10 meters behind us, you will have a look to our production. So here is where we manufacture, assemble. On the left is where we assemble our electrical cabinet, and on the right here where we do the testing of our electrical cabinet. And as you can see, there are 2 VLMs, one on the left and one on the right. The one on the left is used for the material to assemble the cabinet. The one on the right is more used for material which is installed on board of our unit, like the laser pointer, like the copilot that I already shown you. So Now we quickly go back to our Modula Pallet. So here we are. So the product looks very similar to the one that I've shown you before, but there are some differences that you can immediately observe and note. For example, the external base. Anyway, just describe what is this product, the so-called Modula Pallet. Modula Pallet is based on the VLM technology, so the technology inside is very similar to the one that you have seen in the standard vertical lift module. So you have two storage columns, one in the front, one in the back. You still have an elevator, which is used to move the trays up and down. But this specific product has some unique features, which are used to manage pallets. So probably the best thing is to start showing it how it works, and then we will enter a little bit more in details of the technical features. So Matteo, can we start calling a pallet? So you see the operator interface is the software that you see, the Modula operating system is exactly the same, so there are no differences. So the family feeling is exactly the same, so every operator can do it very quickly. Now we are calling the first pallet. So we see inside that the elevator goes up, is going up to get the pallet. So later on we will have a better look to the inside of the unit. Obviously we can, for safety reason, we cannot enter while the pallet and the elevator is moving, but later on we have the possibility to enter and to show you a little bit better how it works. You see now that the fork is getting the pallet, retrieving the pallet on board of the shuttle, and then it will present the pallet to the operator. So you see over there, there's a small elevator in the bay, and now the pallet is quickly put on the ground. So this is one of the unique features of this special VLM, which is the pallet can be moved directly from the ground with a pallet jack, with a manual pallet jack. So you don't need forklifts, you don't need driving license for the forklift, you don't need anything. Just with the pallet jack is already possible to manage it. So you see, we are talking about Euro pallets. So that's the size of the pallet that we can manage with different weights. The weights obviously depend on the payload of the trays. The trays that we have inside are again the same. The maximum weight, the maximum payload of the tray is the same that I mentioned before, so 1 ton. It means that according to the different sizes of the tray, and again we can have a tray for 1.5, 1.9, 3.1, 4.1 in this case, you can manage for each tray 1, 2, 3 or 4 pallets. The unit can also be installed obviously side by side. Now we show you how to re-enter the pallet inside the unit, or how to enter a pallet inside the unit, with another interesting feature that is the possibility to pick some material also without extracting completely the pallet. So now, Matteo, is it possible to stop the pallet and do a picking? So we will show how to do picking. In case you have to pick some material which is installed, which is already stored inside the pallet or inside sometimes there are big boxes with the same size of the Euro pallet, and maybe you want to pick something directly from the pallet but without extracting it completely. So it's possible to simply stop the pallet at a certain height. So now we put it down and we show you the process, the complete process. So because typically when you do picking by calling a pallet which is already stored inside the Modula pallet. So you will see exactly how the process looks like. So some of the unique features of this unit are the complete dynamic height management. So it means that every time you have an intake of a pallet, we measure the real height of that specific pallet in a way that we can find the perfect storage location for that pallet. Another very important feature is that we measure with load cells at every pallet intake the weight of the single pallet. And this again is very important because we find the perfect spot inside the unit where you can store the pallet. So optimizing in this way the distribution of the weights on each single tray and the distribution of the heights and the homogeneity of the heights of the pallet when you store them. So now we have done the cycle again. The pallet is coming out, but in this case we will not extract it completely, but we will stop the pallet and we will show you how to pick a product or a specific product which is stored inside the pallet. Yeah. So Matteo, if you can show how to manually adjust the height in a way that is comfortable for the picking, and then we will show also the picking. So this is on the ground floor. Now Matteo is adjusting manually the height of the pallet. And as soon as he feels that it's at the right height, he can, in a safety way, open the lateral door, and you can see that he can pick some material. Obviously, typically here, you have a picking window, and you can have a barcode reader, or you can do like the one that Matteo is having right now. So you can scan the product that you have picked, in a way that everything obviously is traced as we mentioned before. When it's done, we can close again the lateral door and tell the DLM to retrieve completely the pallet. Facciamo vedere il quadro elettrico. Nel frattempo li faccio vedere. So now I will show you another couple of things. I promised to have a look inside, so you can have how the trays are done, so the shape of the trays, and also how to, in case there is something that needs to be done inside the unit, how it is possible to have access inside the unit. But most important is an aspect of what you see here. So here we have two different units. So the one on the left that we are working with is an MX, so-called MX unit. So the width of the tray is 3.1 meter, and it means that you can store up to 3 Euro pallet in these trays. The unit that we have on the right, and you see that they are installed in this case side by side, is a 4.1 meter wide tray, and it means that you can store up to 4 pallets. Important that anyway the total load of the tray is still 1 ton. So in the case of the ML unit, on average you have 250 kg per pallet. On the unit on the left, which is an MX for 3 pallets, the average weight of each pallet is 330 kilos. That doesn't mean that every pallet needs to have exactly the same weight, but that on average, this is what you need to have, because totally you can have no more than 1 ton per each tray. The load can be a little unbalanced, typically a 60%, 40% is allowed. So it is possible to work around the real height of the real weight of the different pallets. Earlier with the VLM, with the other standard VLM, I mentioned that we have a built-in electrical cabinet. In this case, for the conformation and manufacturing of this unit, the electrical cabinet is installed outside the unit. And in this case, as you can see here, is a standard industrial cabinet. So what we have inside, the electronic and so on, and all the safety devices and whatever, are very similar to what we have in another unit, but the enclosure is a little bit different. Now Matteo will show you how to enter in a safe way, or the only way which is possible to enter the unit. Obviously it's a safe way, but we will show you the procedure how you can do it. So Matteo, now he will show you. First of all, you have to turn the key. There's a special key. Only with that special key we can open the door. Obviously, removing the key from the cabinet means that you have no power inside the unit, so you can now safely have access to the unit, and we can have a look inside. So in particular, what you can see here is the shuttle with the fork, with the telescopic fork, that is used obviously to bring and retrieve, to put in and retrieve the pallets. And we can see the special design of the trays. So it's a specific tubular design. So it's done with pipes. So it's a little bit different to our standard trays because obviously it's done specifically for the pallet. Another important feature and unique feature of this unit is that you can mix trays with pallet with standard trays for material. So in that case, for example, it's possible to have an opposite bay on the other side of the unit, which is exactly a standard bay like the bay that we have seen before, the operator bay for the VLM, and in that way an operator can work with standard material on one side and with pallet on the other side of the unit. So giving you even more flexibility for the application. Speaking about application, which is the typical application for this kind of unit, for the pallet unit? On average, when you have between some dozens and hundreds of pallets, so if you have up to 300, 400 pallets, if the pallets are not too heavy, because obviously if the pallets are more than 1 ton each, this product doesn't make any sense. So it's not thought to be a central warehouse, but is mainly thought to be a good buffer, or it can be also a warehouse, a central warehouse for pallets for small, medium companies who doesn't have so many pallets to be stored. Now, we move to another location, which is very, very close to us, but in the meantime, I think that we have a small video to show you why we do the transition between this area and the next area. So the video should start in a few seconds and we reconnect in a few minutes in the other area. See you later. Prova. So here we are again. The break was a little bit longer than expected for some unforeseeable technical problems, but here we are again. So what we have seen was a video with an application of an integration. So I mentioned that it's possible to integrate our units, our VLMs with robots, cobots, AMR. And what you have seen is a real life application with our customer Amer, where there is an integration between a VLM and an AMR. Now, back here, what are we going to see right now is two things. First of all, the third product of the day, which is the Modula Slim. And after that, together with me, Gianluca Grandi, will show you more about the picking application and our WMS software. So let's start from the Modula Slim. So the Modula Slim is based on the VLM technology. So it's basically a small VLM. And when I say small, it means that the dimension of the tray is smaller than the one of the lift. So in particular, the depth of this tray is only 420 millimeters. Why? Because we have a complete solution with a total depth of the unit of only 1.6 meter. So this product is very well suited and designed for narrow spaces. So if you don't have enough space, as always happens or very often happens in the factories, it's possible to use this kind of unit. Just a couple of characteristics before giving the word to Gianluca. Three type of tray with three different widths, 1.3 meter, 1.9 and 2.5 meter. One single depth, 420 millimeter. One single payload, 350 kg. So anyway, a very good payload for industrial application. Different heights. So in this case, we start from 2.4 meter and we go up to 7 meter. More or less all the devices, features, options that we have seen on the Modula Lift are also valid for the Slim. We have a different location of the copilot of our interface. So you remember that with the other product, with the Modula Lift, we had the interface which was close to the operator and on another position. Here we install it in the central position on top of the unit. But anyway, very easy to be managed by any operator. Now I would like to leave the word to Gianluca Grandi. He will show us how to work, how typically a system works with a WMS software. The WMS software, as I mentioned, can also be connected to an external ERP system in some cases. It depends what the customer wants. And how to do picking with the aid of a picking station and a put-to-light system. So please, Gianluca, go ahead.
Good morning to all. So here we have prepared a little demo environment where we have the WMS, who's the overall warehouse core. Everything inside of the warehouse is stored in WMS based on a SQL Server database. I don't want to spend time describing technical features. We can describe them in other situations. So, the WMS is something that manages the warehouse, and it can be fully integrated with the ERP system. And with the integration, you simply retrieve picking or put away orders from the ERP system, and then you start the warehouse job, that is picking and put aways. Here we have also the picking station. The picking station goal is to increase the overall warehouse throughput, the overall warehouse performances in terms of pickings. Uh, because, especially when you have a huge amount of pickings to be done, how can you do this? Just make a little excursion. When you execute a single order, you have to prepare, for example, a box, a trolley, or something where you place what you picked from the warehouse. If you execute one order at a time, obviously the throughput is a certain amount of pickings per hour. How can you increase these pickings? By increasing the queue of pending operation on the Modula, because increasing the queue means, okay, I have more than one operation to be done on each single tray. So how can you increase this amount of operation in queue? Either by giving to the Modula orders having a huge amount of rows, or by executing several orders at the same time. Where's the limit? The limit is only physical. I mean, with the software you could execute hundreds of orders at the same time. The problem is, okay, imagine, as I told you before, you execute one order, you have to prepare one box, one trolley, something where you place the goods you pick from the warehouse. If you execute two orders, you have to prepare two boxes. If you execute 10 orders, you have to execute 10 boxes. You can execute 10 orders at the same time. But now the modular will give you the information, okay, pick up this item and place it on this box. But you can make a mistake. So the picking station helps you to avoid these errors, because you configure a certain amount of position where you place, as in this case, boxes, and when you execute the order, the system will assign each order to a position. And when the tray is out, the Modula indicates where you have to place the goods you pick from the Modula by lighting the displays. Let's see what happens. I have here 4 orders to be executed. I execute them immediately, and then the Modula starts bringing down the first tray. Obviously, these are example items. So now the Modula tells me, okay, I have to pick this item here, but beware, I have 2 displays on, because this is a batch picking. I mean, I have to pick the same item for 2 different orders. So I pick the item from the Modula, and then I bring each quantity given by the display. Okay, I place one item here, perfect. And then I place the second item here, and I confirm directly from the picking station. So I don't have to return back to the modular to confirm the operation. I save another little amount of time. Now you see the optimization. The tray stays out and indicates me to pick up a second item. Here you can see, for example, the LED bar indicating me the position of the where to find the item. I have the more or less the design of the tray on the co-pilot. Then I pick up all the indicated quantities, and then I bring it here on the first position and on the second position. Now I have a third operation. Again, I repeat everything. When I confirm the last request, the tray returns back, and the next tray is bring down. So in this case, I have a huge amount of speed, because I move from the modular to the picking station only once for each single item, and then I distribute everything immediately. So now I have the second item to be picked. I picked from the modular, from the position indicated by the LED bar, by the display, and then I confirm here. I confirm also in the second position. Again, I have still more operation to be done. I pick from the modular and I place inside of the boxes. Now I have the last operation. Then here you see the display now blink, uh, telling me, okay, the order has finished. So you can simply remove the box, replace them with empty boxes, and say, okay, I confirm. by confirming, by pressing the button. I simply take away the box, I place it somewhere else, and then, okay, by completing this action, free the position and makes it available for the next order. So you can start with another batch of orders to be executed. So, just as a summary, I prepared 4 orders at the same time, saving a lot of time. If I had made this order once, one at a time, I would have used a huge amount of time, and I also would have let the machine move several times further and unnecessary. So this solution is useful when you want to increase the overall throughput of the warehouse by executing several orders at the same time, reducing the possibility to make mistakes. Where the mistake is I place the right item inside of the wrong box. Okay, perfect. Yes.
So thank you, Gianluca, for the explanation regarding the picking station and the put-to-light system and how it's typically uh, useful to use this kind of equipment and system in combination to have a better performance of the VLMs. Now, we are more or less at the end, and there can be the Q&A sessions. So I firstly ask the colleagues if there are some questions. I see on the screen at least the first one. Yeah, the first one, I read the question so everyone can also listen to the answer. Is it a must to have a VLM installed close to a wall, or can be the VLM installed everywhere? Well, obviously, it can be installed everywhere. I mean, typically, it's quite normal to have it close to a wall because everyone tend to avoid to put it in the middle of a space. But for example, you have seen the pallet unit. Maybe you didn't notice the back of the pallet unit. But anyway, the pallet unit is not installed. Our two pallets unit are not installed close to a wall. So it's definitely possible also to install it outside of it, not close to a wall. So it seems that there are no further questions. Anyway, if you want to make questions, feel free to do them. We are here to answer everything. If not, in any case, you have all our details, considering that you have registered to this live streaming, so you can also make questions after that. So for now, it's everything from Modula. I hope that you find it useful. Thanks again for being here and for the participation. Have a great day.